Thank you for coming for this panel titled Peace and Sustainable Development, a Two-Way Relationship. And this panel is co-organized by Journalists and Writers Foundation, which has a general consultative status at the United Nations, and by Permanent Mission of El Salvador, and Peace Islands Institute, which is an NGO based in New York. This panel actually is organized on the occasion of 8th session of the Open Working Group on Sustainable Development Goals. So this session is the last one. And I would like first here to make an introduction to this panel first, and then to briefly discuss about how the Journalists and Rights Foundation and affiliated organizations are contributing to this topic. So why we came up with this discussion panel is because we think that the peace is, durable peace is very important for sustainable development. And the other way is that development is very important and significant for durable peace to sustain that peace. And we want to focus on how the nations, the peace is not very easy to achieve in those countries who are experiencing conflict, and therefore we need to discuss what's the UN's or other organizations or other countries' role in this enforcement of the peace agreements between the conflicting sides, and how those nations can start implementing development policies. And we in the MDG Millennium Development Goals discussions and evaluations, we all saw that the nations that experienced or experiencing the conflicts couldn't achieve any goals, any development goals, and therefore in the SDG discussions, member states and UN agencies started to emphasize the role of peace and how it can be achieved first, and then how the SDGs can be implemented. So we'd like to give an academic perspective, research perspective to these discussions with our distinguished professors from Columbia and NYU, New York University. And I'd like to highlight some our focus, the Journals and Rights Foundation's focus. By the way, actually, I forgot to introduce myself. I represent Journals and Rights Foundation at the UN, and also I teach a class at Columbia University. I am Galymzhan Kirbassov. The Journals and Rights Foundation is an international NGO inspired by scholar Fethullah Gulen, and who also inspired many academicians, experts, and people, entrepreneurs, to open schools and educational facilities around the world. So it's about, they are not, of course, and we are not formally connected to each other, but it's informal connection and network. And they are, all these institutions and the schools are operating in 160 nations around the world. So it's a very big network. And the primary focus of these institutions and schools are science and math. So they, these schools prepare those kids and students to become professionals of their nations and to contribute to the development of that nation. And those those schools are, of course, not only educate science and math, but also they educate peace. And in the many countries such as Afghanistan, Iraq, Bosnia and Herzegovina, and other places, these schools became social mediator, place for social mediation. So the concept is the parents of conflicting sides in that country, they see that these schools are very successful, and they send their kids to study there, to have a very good quality education. At the same time, the school becomes not only educational facility, but also the the place for interaction between the parents. So they get to know each other in those schools, and it contributes to the peace in that locality. Why we believe that why we focus on education is because we believe that education is in the center of sustainable development goals, and we have discussed it with member states and other agencies too. So in sustainable development goals, we have economic dimension, social dimension, environmental dimension, and peace and governance dimension right now. And the education, we believe that affect all of these dimensions directly or indirectly. And that's why, as an NGO and as a civil society, we would like to focus our attention and all the resources to a specific goal, the education.